Have you ever wondered why the air behind you suddenly turns ice cold in certain places? Well, welcome to today's explainer. We're not just swapping spooky ghost stories around a campfire here. We are structurally analyzing why brushing off ancestral folklore, treating it like it's just some silly myth, can literally be a fatal mistake. So let's dive right in and unpack the severe, and I mean absolutely severe, consequences of breaking these ancient rules of the dark.
Okay, I want you to really picture this for a second. You're walking down a deserted, lonely hill road. It's, say, 2 a.m., dead of night. Suddenly from right behind you, you hear the voice of your own mother. She's crying out, literally calling your name. Every single instinct in your heart screams at you to turn around, right? But then, in the back of your mind, this ancient, chilling warning echoes. Jo bhi ho jaye. Amavasya ki raat piche mat dekhna. Whatever happens, don't look back on a new moon night. You see, the absolute deepest horror? It doesn't come from cheap jump scares. It actually stems from this exact kind of atmospheric, nail-biting tension.
Now, to really wrap our heads around these folklore ecosystems, we've got to first understand their hunting ground. It's a concept known as Sannata. Basically, it translates to a deep, terrifying silence. But listen, it's way more than just a lack of noise. It is this heavy, completely oppressive quiet where the absolute only sound left in the world is the frantic beating of your own heart. This Sannata is exactly where the entities we're about to look at absolutely thrive.
So how do you survive this Sannata? Well, our ancestors certainly didn't rely on modern logic to get by. Instead, they created an incredibly strict system of laws. These are the ancient rules of the dark. Now, today, we kind of just laugh these off as outdated superstitions, right? But as we analyze the source material, a terrifying thesis emerges. These rules aren't just myths. They're actually a highly evolved ancestral security system perfectly designed to keep people safe from the supernatural.
Let's take a look at the very specific rules our sources highlight. Think of these as the essential, literal barriers between safety and sheer tragedy. First up, do not look back if you're called at night, especially on a new moon. Second, never, ever open a door after exactly 3 knocks on Amavasya. And third, coming from the village of shadows, your shadow must never touch a cursed banyan tree after the sun goes down. Guys, these aren't just polite suggestions, they are absolute unbreakable laws.
And this brings us to a distinctly modern problem, which is captured just perfectly by 2 case studies we have. First, we have Rahul. He's this highly logical college student who actively mocks superstitions. And then we have the city boy, who's visiting an ancestral home and is just completely, utterly ignorant of the local shadow rules. Both of these guys represent a super dangerous modern mindset, arrogance and ignorance. And as we're about to see, both of these mindsets lead directly, and I mean directly, to fatal breaches of these ancient laws.
Let's break down Rahul's fatal mistake first. He goes out to a village where the locals explicitly warn him about the rule of the 3 knocks, but Rahul, leaning way too heavily on modern logic, just completely dismisses it. He tells his friends, this is just a YouTube prank, because naturally, modern logic dictates it has to be a prank, right? Then, the breach happens. Talk, the first knock. Talk, the second knock. Talk, the third knock. And then, the absolute fatal decision. Rahul jerks the door open.
Meanwhile, our city boy makes a much quieter, but honestly equally deadly mistake. He's just careless. He wanders near the village banyan tree after the sun has already gone down, and right there, boom, the exact moment of the breach occurs. His shadow falls right onto the cursed tree. There's no grand defiance here, just a tragic, simple lack of awareness of the ancient rules that govern that specific geography.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is this. What actually happens when these specific rules are broken? Well, that modern logic these boys relied on immediately, and catastrophically, collapses. When the ancestral laws fail, the entities that have just been waiting out there in the Sannata, they awaken. Let's shift our focus a bit to analyze the immediate, truly terrifying fallout of these modern breaches, and look at the exact nature of the horrors they invite right in.
When Rahul opened that door to the fog, he wasn't met with some teenager pulling a YouTube prank. He was hit with this rotting, completely animal-like smell and saw a woman in a long veil. When the wind blew, he saw she actually had reverse feet and these long, animal-like claws. This entity, known in folklore as a pishakini or a shakchuni, actually has a deeply tragic origin story. She was a Thakurain who 50 years ago was denied the chance to prove her purity simply because her terrified village refused to open their doors to her.
Betrayed and totally abandoned by her own people, she literally became a Pishachini. And now, she wanders from house to house, delivering those exact 3 knocks.
But the thing is, these entities don't just physically attack you. They wage absolute psychological warfare. The Shakchune emits that rotting smell to disorient you, but way more horrifyingly, she actually takes on the faces and voices of your loved ones to lure you in. She completely misdirects you, making you lose your way in the dense forest. The sources also mention this other entity, the Chhalava, which operates on lonely highways, literally hypnotizing drivers to commit suicide. They completely weaponize your trust and your very senses right against you.
This all reveals a brilliantly strict cause and effect ecosystem. I mean, look at this. Open the door to 3 knocks, you awaken the Shaktuni and face horrific psychological deception out in the woods. Let your shadow touch the banyan tree, you awaken the detached shadow entity, and the direct consequence is the draining of your own life force. It's a terrifyingly logical system, honestly, where every single broken rule has a precise, absolutely undeniable consequence.
Let's zoom in a bit on the city boy's consequence, because it's wild. Because he let his shadow touch that banyan tree after sunset, the curse takes full effect. His shadow literally detaches from him. It just begins living a life of its own. But it's a parasite. To become fully real, it slowly and methodically drains the life force right out of the boy's physical body. It's just this silent, creeping theft of his very existence.
Here's the terrifying part. Once the rule is broken and the entity is attached, you absolutely cannot logic your way out of it. A hospital? That's not going to cure a detached shadow. A GPS? Definitely won't save you from the Shakchuni's forest. The victims have to completely abandon the modern world. They have to rely on extreme traditional interventions. They basically need the final resort, the Agori's cure. Just look at the stark contrast here on the screen. The modern victim, like our arrogant college student or that ignorant city boy, is now completely 100% helpless. Their physical bodies are failing and their minds are just lost in supernatural deception. Standing in total opposition to that is the traditional savior. This is the Agori, or maybe the village elder. They are the ones who hold the ancient knowledge and wield the highly specialized cures required to actually navigate the Sannata.
To survive this, you have to follow exact, incredibly dangerous steps. First, you have to face death head-on by returning directly to the source of the evil. Maybe that's the haunted well where the Thakurain died, or an old library. Second, you gotta seek intervention from that expert we talked about. And third, you must endure the cure. For the city boy, for example, the Agori actually has to perform a highly specialized, intense fire ritual to literally stitch the detached shadow back to the boy's physical body before the entity takes over completely. Talk about high stakes.
So, we've analyzed the rules, the horrific consequences of breaking them, and the extreme, terrifying lengths required for a cure. It all comes back to how we perceive the world around us. The next time you find yourself driving down a lonely highway and you hear the sound of unknown footsteps right behind you, or maybe 3 sudden knocks on your front door, I really want you to think twice before relying purely on modern logic, because the entities in the dark, they're just waiting for you to break the rules. I'm going to leave you with this chilling question directly from our source material. Kya aap tayar hain us Sannata ka samna karne ke liye? Are you ready to face the silence? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and until next time, whatever you do, don't look back.